As much as we love Daniel Craig's unforgettable run as James Bond, that chapter has officially closed. The big question now is, who will take up the mantle of 007? Even if you strapped one of the Bond producers to a metal table and aimed a laser at them, they'd likely stay silent, such is the ironclad secrecy surrounding the Bond casting process. But over time, a few frontrunners have emerged. For years, Idris Elba was considered a top contender, but he has repeatedly distanced himself from the role. Meanwhile, rising stars like Theo James, Callum Turner, and Damson Idris have sparked intrigue. Though in true Bond fashion, they might prefer their interest stirred, not shaken. If there's one name that seems to lead the pack, it's Aaron Taylor Johnson. Rumors have linked him to the role for a while now. Last year, The Sun reported that he had secretly tested for Bond, and in May, they claimed he'd been formally offered the part. Of course, take those reports with a grain of salt, enough to rim a margarita glass. Taylor Johnson might not be everyone's first choice to carry the Walther PPK, but it's worth remembering that Daniel Craig wasn't a unanimous pick back in 2005 either. Fans protested his casting. Yes, some didn't like that he was blonde, and even Craig himself tried to decline the role. Yet he went on to redefine the character. So as we consider the possibilities, remember, the next Bond might just surprise us all. Here's our take on who could and should become the next James Bond. Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Poulter's pivoting to where the action is. Why? British actor Will Poulter's commercial viability is on the rise. Fresh off an Emmy nomination for U.S. miniseries Dopesick, the 29-year-old has just nailed a role in the Marvel Universe in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, a move that could open the door to an action role like Bond. He's bulked up and is in peak physical condition thanks to Marvel, so his Bond prep would likely be minimal. Handy that, Poulter's a huge Bond fan himself too. Despite saying he's sad to see Daniel Craig, his favorite Bond to date, go, he's excited to see the evolution of that character and what comes of Lashana in the Bond films, he told GQ. His passion for the franchise is clear, and surely playing the protagonist would be a natural fit. Why not? At 29, Poulter, with his glowing, youthful complexion, potentially is a touch too young for the character. After Craig, it would be a bit of a twist to see a Bond in his 20s, and producers have shared that it's not a direction they're keen to explore. Also, Poulter said himself he's hopeful for Bond to continue in the same vein. Taron Egerton. He already played a super spy in a Bond dupe. Can he do it again? Why? Welsh wonder Taron Egerton has already proved his action chops in the Kingsman films, a franchise built on being a more ridiculous and more audacious Bond. As lovable scamp Eggsy, he proved he could play gruff as much as suave, never losing his hard edge in the crisp lines of his tailoring. Ever since his Kingsman run, Egerton's name has been floating around the reboot pool, looking to be snatched up. First, there was Wolverine, a casting choice that felt almost set in stone before it seemed to vanish into thin air. While he's been flexing his other skills like his hearty pipes in the movie Sing, his dramatic chops in the Apple TV Plus series Blackbird, and his ability to wear platforms and spandex without breaking a sweat in Rocketman, there's something to be said for those action roots calling him back home. Why not? Honestly, at this point, it would just feel a bit random. There's nothing to say that a Bond hopeful can't be plucked from the pack once their time at the top of the leaderboard has well and truly passed. But had Daniel Craig quit when he said he would, maybe Egerton in the role would make more sense. When pressed recently on whether he still fancied playing Wolverine, he said, "You know, it may not be that they're the right thing for me anymore. Maybe I'm past the point where that felt like the right thing for my career." With Bond being as much, if not more, of a tie to one role and one set routine for even longer, maybe the juices of these kinds of roles have just dried up. Dev Patel. Who says we can't have a Bond with beachy waves? Why? Dev Patel is, quite frankly, one of the best-looking guys out there, and that's only about 45% to do with those luscious, curly locks. Tall, dark, and handsome, he's everything Bond should be, especially with his recent electric performance in the action-packed Monkey Man. Also his directorial debut, Busy Guy. Since his run as the awkward Anwar in Skins, Patel has earned himself a healthy roster of roles, including an Oscar nomination for his turn in line. Between comedy, drama, and action, there's not really much that Patel has tried his hand at that hasn't worked. And with a supposed reinvention of Bond coming with this next iteration, maybe there's a chance to have a bit more fun with it. Craig was the perfect monosyllabic Bond for the noughties, but maybe this new 007, a man of the 2020s, can loosen the collar a bit as long as they don't make Dev Patel cut the hair. Why not? Simply put, Dev Patel just doesn't seem that bothered about playing Bond. After a few early career big-budget turkeys, Patel seems to have found his groove with the mid-budget indie. Considering this is going to be the most hotly contested role of the decade, whoever's in the running might need a bit more bite. Although Monkey Man has this in abundance. Jacob Elordi, another Elvis, enters the ring. Why? Jacob Elordi is hot right now. I mean, he's been hot this whole time, but in terms of cultural capital, he's basically on fire. Long gone are the days of him being shackled to the Kissing Booth movies, and with Euphoria basically in indefinite limbo, Elordi has taken his chance to become the next It Boy, serving as the hot boy muse of Sofia Coppola and Priscilla, where he'll take on the role of Elvis, in Emerald Fennell's Saltburn, where he seems to be the object of Psycho's sexual obsession. We get it. Combine this era of being a director's actor with the fact he knows how to wear a suit and a tiny little handbag. It's kind of a no-brainer. Why not? Well, sadly, he's an Aussie. He's not the only non-Brit to grace this list, and, as we said, all bets are off this time around when it comes to what we imagine as Bond. But it will be a hard thing for people to get over, that's for sure. And while the Kissing Booth franchise is no Bond, Elordi has already done his time tethered to a role with no immediate end in sight, and, to be honest, it's exciting seeing the more interesting projects he's deciding to carve out as a result of his freedom. Bond is great, but we need our It boys in indie cinema too. Damson Idris, the rising star who is about to explode. Why? Damson Idris might not be a household name, but that hasn't stopped him from quickly climbing the ranks as one of the most likely Bond hopefuls. He's currently dancing around the top 5 after catching eyes from his prestige turns in the likes of Black Mirror and Donald Glover's Swarm. He's handsome, charming, and mysterious, which is the second most important cocktail in the Bondiverse. He'll next be sharing the screen with Brad Pitt in a new Formula One movie for Apple TV Plus directed by Top Gun. Maverick's Joseph Kosinski, meaning his rising star could soon be about to explode. In terms of exciting prospects for the new 007, Idris basically the ideal choice. Why not? Honestly, there are very few reasons why Damson Idris shouldn't play Bond. As with the conversation that followed Idris Elba for years, the prospect of leading the charge as the first black Bond will inevitably come with pushback that no one should have to endure unless they want to. However, as the conversation has evolved about who and what Bond represents, Idris seems like the perfect mold for 2023 and beyond. Henry Golding. He proved his action chops and looked good doing it in Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman in 2019. Why? It takes a special kind of person to go from 0 acting roles to leading a big-budget romantic comedy based purely on your inherent desirability. Henry Golding was plucked from the world of BBC travel presenting back in 2018 to front Crazy Rich Asians, with the book's author saying, "He's a leading man 3 times over without the first movie even coming out yet, and it's a testament to his talent. People just fall in love with him." Since then, he's continued his upward trajectory, hitting every genre from action, The Gentleman, Snake Eyes, to comedy, A Simple Favor, to historical drama, Persuasion. There's kind of nothing he can't do, and it also helps that he knows how to wear the hell out of a suit. His casting would also be a historic move, as the franchise has often been plagued with criticisms about its willingness to accept a diversity of the British experience. It could be the perfect way to kick off a new era of Bond. Why not? Golding has charm coming out of the wazoo. He's literally built an entire career on it. His dimples, deep eyes you could bathe in, and kind warmth would surely snare any Bond girl in a 2-mile radius. But whether or not he can embody the explosive menace and violence that 007 needs to exhibit regularly remains to be seen. Paul Mescal, the primo soft boy, is entering his hard boy era. Why? It's been a banner few years for Paul Mescal. After erupting into our lives during the pandemic as some kind of parasocial soft boy and normal people, he's just nabbed his first Oscar nomination for the intimate and brooding Aftersun. The film is basically 2 hours of Mescal saying nothing but everything at the same time, a trait inherent to any Bond racking up trauma on a daily. As well as clearly being able to internalize the complex interiority of James Bond, he's got the bod, never forget the short shorts, and action backing to boost the adrenaline as he's just been cast in Ridley Scott's long-awaited Gladiator sequel. Maybe it's time to get 007 a signature gold chain as well as a drink order. Why not? Can James Bond ever be a soft boy? Mescal may be entering his hard boy era now, but there's just something inherently unthreatening about him. We might have to wait for a few of his grittier projects to see the light of day before making a judgment on whether we can give him a license to kill. Regé-Jean Page proved what he could do with a spoon. Let's see what happens when we give him a gun. Why? If Bond is the most eligible bachelor ever to appear on screen, let's be clear, he is, then there are few better auditions than Regé-Jean Page's turn as Simon Bassett, the Duke of Hastings, in Shonda Rhimes' adaptation of the Bridgerton novels. He's tall and good-looking. His skills in a velvet frock coat and cravat mean he would ace the Bond tuxedo test, and he has the necessary charm and lightness of touch to deliver Bond's one-liners. Since Bridgerton dropped on Christmas Day 2020 and saw Page's chances with the bookies drop from 40 to 1 to 5 to 1, his odds have remained short at a commanding 3 to 1. Is he about to be revealed? In 2022, Page appeared on our screens in Netflix's The Gray Man, portraying an evil CIA figurehead. Given the groundswell of interest around Page as Bond, the Radio Times asked directors the Russo brothers for their thoughts on his 007 bona fides, and the American sibling duo gave 4 resounding thumbs up. "He's fantastic," Joe Russo said. "I mean, he has more charisma in his pinky than most people do in their entire body. So, we'd watch him do anything. I mean, we'd watch him read the phone book." Anthony Russo agreed. "He's a very savvy performer and has so much charm. Why not? Bridgerton is charming, whimsical, and a gloriously Americanized view of high society in Regency England. Hastings can be tough at times, certainly, but would Page deliver the right sort of deep, brooding menace to Bond that Craig has imbued in the role? There's an argument that he's a little lightweight. Austin Butler. Please, let's give him a new accent to adopt indefinitely. Why? It's hard to imagine a riskier role than Elvis Aaron Presley, probably the most parodied and imitated man in the world. But American actor Austin Butler does it with aplomb in Baz Luhrmann's superlative biopic of the American singer. Could Butler's next step be the most parodied and imitated man in fiction? At 30, he's about the right age, particularly given the producer's stated intention to modernize the Bond character. He's famous without yet being overexposed or too connected to an existing role, just like Daniel Craig was when he took the helm, and what counts again as longtime bookies' favorite Idris Elba. He can smolder with the best of them and could probably pull off the British accent. Why not? After the grizzled physicality of the Craig years, it's hard to imagine a Bond with such old-school matinee idol looks as Butler in the role. No matter how much they make Bond a modern man, he's still going to have to karate chop the odd henchman and roll out of the way of some explosions. At the moment, it's hard to picture Broadway darling Butler doing that, although he piled on the muscle for his role in Dune. Part 2. Then, of course, there's the fact he is American, which might cause a hardcore Bond fan backlash of diplomatic incident proportions. Actually, mark that as something in his favor. Robert Pattinson. Now, one of the most interesting actors in the business, Pattinson could take Bond in a unique direction. Why? He's come a long way since Edward Cullen. While we would never cast aspersions on his role as the glittery vampire, Robert Pattinson has developed his acting repertoire substantially since the blockbuster Twilight franchise ended, opting for a raft of challenging indie roles that have each informed his acting style. The Batman could turn into a long-running series, which could hamper his chances of taking on Bond, but Bond's physical nature wouldn't be a problem for the newly hench leading man. He has the looks, the charm, and the dedicated approach to filmmaking that Bond's production team look for in a candidate. Superhero to super spy, anyone? It seems as though we're not the only proponents for our Pat swapping the batsuit for a tux. Speaking to Esquire UK ahead of the release of Disney Plus's Pistol, director Danny Boyle said Pattinson would have been one of his 2 picks for the next Bond, alongside I May Destroy You's Papa, Esiadu. Boyle's canned 007 flick would have covered his origin story before taking the action to present-day Russia, Pattinson on a clandestine high-stakes mission in Moscow. Count us in. Why not? Bond has looked towards a little more humor in recent outings, and while we have no doubt Pattinson would be up to the task, his more serious filmography might look too Timothy Dalton, NB we rate License to Kill's grittier tone, for Bond's current direction.